Where are you going?
I'm gonna get my drill gun so I can put this board together. You wanna wear those to school? Yep, getting everybody buckled up. Coffee. Each of my daughters have like their own vibe, their own identity, their own interests. They've expressed interest in skating, but you know, on a limited scale.
No, I don't care about it.
That's it.
That's it. We're at Old Mountain Field, Wakefield, Rhode Island. This used to just be a skate park up there, and they had a roller hockey rink here. We just sort of manhandled the whole zone and started bringing our own stuff here, and our friends are pouring curbs. We're adding little movable parts to this little skate park, so it's fun. You can kind of have a blank canvas and create your own little obstacle zone however you want. I haven't had a board out in several years. I don't know, so kind of like repping my own board right now just because I'm hyped on it, you know. We are at the Groton Senior Center, which is directly across the street from the house that I grew up in. And when I was a kid, I had my first skateboard at age 10. This was like my skate park. I would just come over here when it was closed, but there was always the one boss that would stay late, and I would like spy to see if her car was still there, because she would always kick me out, and then she'd complain to my mom, and my mom would be like, you know, you can't go over there and skate anymore. So I'd sneak around the building to see if her car was there, parked in the back, and if it wasn't there, I'd skate.
Christmas dinner, 1990.
When I was in the hospital, I was having Donnie, and there was a little problem. Donnie decided he would come out feet first. So that's called breech. So when he became a skateboarder, I said, it was all in the cards because you came out feet first. I was very supportive.
It was unknown back then.
Yeah, it was a new thing in our area. And Donnie was among maybe 3 or 4 kids that used to do it in the neighborhood.
Broken pom-pom.
Yeah.
Well, I was here.
Yeah. They called it the airport ramp because there's an airport, little regional airport right here. Yeah, the ramp?
The ramp?
Yep.
The ramp's on the slab, yeah. Yep.
There's pictures. 1987. There's Donnie, 1987.
We didn't have a deck at first. We just had the raw edge, and we'd drop in off of the towel because it felt like the plywood was snagging your. You know, you wore like a tailbone back then.
It's fun. A lot of fun.
Feels good, eh?
Yeah, totally.
Who's your new sponsor?
Think Skateboards.
Think you're gonna be down with them?
Hell yeah. The goal was like escape, get out of town, get to a place where you can just finally get to see what it's like. Looking at every skateboard magazine and all the photos in California and wondering what it looked like at that ramp, or what it looked like in that backyard pool, or what that schoolyard would be like if you were there in person.
So the little bit of footage I filmed of him, I went to SF with Jimmy Chung and Bam, and Donnie was out there, that's right, with ThinkBoards. And there's like a night line at Union Square, and there's some stuff at that school out in the avenues.
I was living in San Francisco, and I was living with Satva Leung, and there was 4 guys living in a 2-bedroom. So Satva skated for Toy Machine. Satva said, hey, you know, Jamie's interested in getting you on the team. I got this first box, and I have a letter that came in that first box, and Jamie had Muska sign it with a message, and Ed Templeton signed it with a message, welcome to the team and stuff. That was incredible. Jamie was just like this explosive, energetic person, would, you know, line up the skate spots, line up the places that we would stay, line up the cities that we were going to, and just was super pro about it. He was a good filmer, knew how to get the right angles, knew how to light up the spot, just did it all. I mean, I don't know if we were filming for Welcome to Hell or not. Probably it was like the beginning of stacking clips for Welcome to Hell, I'd say. Yeah, being around people that were, you know, way better than me, it just did nothing but elevate me.
Did you ever think you would make a living out of it?
No, honestly I didn't. But when he went to California, he was determined to be a pro, so he did.
Barley.
I was skating the Huntington Beach skate park, and I don't know, I wasn't really that good at half cabs, so I tried to switch 180 into a Smith, and it actually locked in really good. And I was skating those double 8 rails with Jamie Thomas, and didn't take that long after I started trying the frontside 180 to switch Smith. And Jamie was like, man, if you do that, that would be your ender. And then I just got one. It was like identical to how I envisioned it, you know, and that doesn't happen a lot, but on that particular occasion, I happened to like land it just on the money.
I have not done a barley grind. It's been a request of him to try to get me to do it, but every time I try, I can't like sit in it. I don't know, I just like fall into the ledge, so.
Did you ever watch these parts when you were younger?
Yeah, for sure, of course. You know, ollie up into the curb cut, chip the tooth on the can, you know.
Well, I mean, he had a handful of footage that was definitely filmed by Jamie in San Diego. I want to say at the time there was maybe a little bit of tension between me and Jamie because, you know, we both wanted him to have the best part in our respective videos. So it was just like, I want this clip. Well, I get this clip. Well, I filmed this.
Dan Wolf was the original mastermind of Eastern Exposure Underachievers, the video that came out in 1996. And he told me he was going to make an East Coast video with East Coast skaters. Man, I don't know if you should have a part in it, but if you're interested, maybe we could give you a part in it. I was like, heck yeah. And we stayed at Panama Dan's house and spent like a couple weeks in Boston skating with Robbie G and Jamal. Got some footage there. Then we took a train down to Philly, stayed with Ricky Iola, and we just went skating for, you know, a month in Philly, and just, man, every day it was just like we'd just go to war.
We just got along, you know. There was like a mix of people in the running, I guess you could say, for who was going to have a part in Eastern Exposure. Like with Donnie, I clicked with. It just was there was a little something more than skating that in our personality styles that meshed. So it just worked out, you know.
Just like in my life, I was just like, I had 2 video parts drop, and then we went on a U.S. tour right after the Welcome to Hell video came out. And I was a new pro with a pro model on a tour. You know, it went from being just Joey from Connecticut to Donnie Barley the pro. It was completely in awe, blown away. And I was actually making money, so I could actually go and eat. You know what I mean?
That's important.
Yeah.
I thought it was nice to see his name on it. It was like, wow, my son made it, you know?
Yeah, I was really stoked at everything that was happening with Toy Machine, and then Jamie started doing Zero, and Muska actually went to go do Shorties, and then at the same time, all my friends that were in Underachievers, like Dan Wolf and Reese Forbes and Tim O'Connor, they decided to go ride for Element. I got a letter from Dan Wolf, and he was just like, hey man, you know, we just would love for you to ride for Element. We think you're a perfect fit. I mean, we could go and make video parts just like we just did, and we could travel the world. And
I mean, that sounds right. I don't know if it was necessarily, I would phrase it as a pitch. It was just the truth. It's like, look, this is what's happening. Do you want to come along for the ride, you know?
And sure enough, I ended up, you know, really taking like a month to think about it. And then I went to Ed's house and had a big heart-to-heart with him and told him I was going to ride for Element. Man, like the second I got on Element, it just seemed like there was just like this new injection of opportunity. Johnny wanted to design clothing, and we wanted to go on a U.S. tour and make another video, and the team was kind of growing a little bit. So whenever somebody mentions the World Tour video, it's like not even really me thinking about the video part so much as me thinking about the travels that went, all the stuff that didn't make it in the video, all the stuff that happened, and we got to see the world. So it was a dream, man. This is my dad's gravestone right here. Well, it says Donald G. Barley, you know, Lieutenant U.S. Navy. Had such a big heart and just a big giver, and yeah, that's the real one right now. That's the real Don Barley right there. I listened to everything my dad told me, and he was a very wise man. But I think he did the same with his dad. I always listened, but then I picked my path, which was sometimes contrary to his direction. And I think he did a lot of that with his father too. The biggest influence in my whole entire life right there. And I yeah, just kind of feel like it helps me a lot of times with my life as a dad, you know, just remembering him and thinking about like some of the things that we went through and some of the values he gave me. Like my dad was a hard worker and my mom was creative, you know, so I got a lot of that from them, and they taught me a lot of strong values about like just earning it. You know, skateboarding isn't something that you can just buy. It's not something that you can fake. You know, you have to bleed for it. And so I'm grateful that my mom and my dad showed me how to get out there and earn it.
I got a better one than that, though.
Yeah, I had an opportunity and I had to make like a business decision, and I chose to ride for Zoo York and move back to the East Coast, and kind of knew that I would end up back here for sure. Kind of just have like the East Coast blood, I think.
Were you happy when you found out Donnie was going to move back east?
Oh yeah, I did. I always say I'll believe it when I see it.
It led to my next job, because that's when my history with Zoo York kind of came to an end, and then I ended up getting a phone call from Element. Ryan Kingman called me and said, man, you should work for Element again. Johnny would be happy to have you back. And I was like, well, what would I do? And then I started selling to like a select group of core shops across the country.
He's gone from competing to making a living with the retail part of skateboarding. He's done a good job.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of being a part of Element is being able to, like, you know, get in the van with Donnie and, like, you know, we do trips to New York and events and stuff. So he's definitely like someone that I like to, you know, cruise with, work with, and skate with.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably the best part of my life so far. Just being a dad, have 3 daughters, a lot of love, moving at a slower pace. At the end of the day, my body and my lifestyle were both sinking, slipping, sliding. Man, it's a hard feeling, hard transition, hard place to be, kind of knowing that, you know, gosh, is this gonna finally end? I could hear my dad's voice, you know, it's not gonna last forever, Donnie. Things like that. It was tough, but, like, you know, all beautiful too at the same time. Like, how hard it was on me because, you know, that just shows how much I loved skateboarding, how much I loved that life. You know, it was incredible. And we're peaceful and happy today, and I still have my skateboard, and that's not gonna go away. When I get time to skate, I go skate. Everybody in the skate world made me, you know? I mean, everywhere I looked, I was inspired, you know, whether it was the artists, the skaters, the videographers, the photographers, everybody challenging me. It was incredible, and I wouldn't have done any of it if I didn't have all of you guys. Everybody that helped, you know who you are, and there's hundreds of them. You know, thank you. You want to wear those to school? Are you allowed to? I'll have to ask Mom. Jesse, you see those shoes up there?